Welcome to part 2 of my DIY tiling tutorial. The first part took you through the tile setting process but did not cover grouting the tile. So here's a look at how to grout a tile wall or floor. More details as well as links to the products we use and recommend are on my website. The link to that is in the description. This part will be a lot shorter than the first one, so if you made it through the actual tile setting process, good news, you're almost there. For the grouting process, you'll need grout, 2 buckets, a grout sponge, grout float, rags or cheesecloth, cardboard, plastic, or something to protect surface area, a paddle mixer, and a large corded drill, as well as sealer. Before we get started on the actual process, there are a few things to consider in planning. For most purposes, sanded grout is probably what you are looking for. It's inexpensive and is the appropriate choice for grout lines 1/8 inch or larger. Non-sanded grout uses polymers as the bonding agent, which costs more. It is smoother, which makes it ideal for thin grout lines, and it's also a good option for shower walls, where I'm told it is easier to apply. However, we typically use sanded grout. For this bathroom, we went through 2 25-pound bags of sanded grout, and rather than use something else for the shower walls, we just stuck with what we had. Grouting is messy work. Protect your floor, countertops, or wherever you're working. We used charcoal-colored grout for our bathroom, and oh my gosh, it was messy. If you go for a dark grout, be prepared for stained hands, stained clothes, and well, stained everything for a little bit. Yes, it will clean up, but it's a good idea to minimize the mess any way that you can. Now, I'm not going to be too specific on the mixing process here since you'll need to refer to whatever brand you are using. They will recommend a specific amount of water. This will mix up thicker than the thin set. There is an allowance for a little more water, but my tip is not to go too far or your grout can develop pinholes as it cures. Only mix as much grout as you will be able to get through in about 30 minutes time. My advice is to mix up a small amount in your first batch while you get your process sorted out. After that first mix, you will have a much better idea of how much you can get through, and you'll be able to apply it much faster. Having a second person for this job helps the work go so much faster. We like to put the grout up as quickly as possible, just really go for it in an all-out focused grout session, and then after about half an hour or so, when the grout's just starting to dry a bit, we switch to sponging the tile. Okay, so let's talk about the actual process of grouting. Apply the grout using the grout float held at a roughly 45-degree angle. You'll want to smoosh the grout into the seams by wiping at an angle from multiple directions. I like to work to fill in all of the lines in an area, then go back and use both hands to create some pressure and run the float back over that area diagonally up and down and just really make sure it's in those seams. You'll want to work quickly, but be thorough. Here's what our shower looked like after grouting, just to give you an idea of what is left behind, at least with this dark grout. I mentioned that you'll need 2 buckets. The first was for mixing the grout, the second is for water to clean the tile. You'll probably need to change that bucket out a few times. Get your grout sponge wet and wring it out. Then wipe down everywhere you grouted. Rinse, repeat, until it comes clean. It's going to be messy for a while. The goal isn't to get it totally clean at this point. You also want to be careful not to wipe all of the grout out of the seams. This is basically where you are setting how much grout fill will be left between the tile. My tip here is that if you aim to be able to see the corners of the tile, meaning they're not covered by the grout, you'll form some pretty clean lines, but don't overstress that goal at this stage. The grout does need time to cure, so at this point you can use a rag to get the bulk of that mess off and clean up those lines, but you'll want to be careful that you, again, don't wipe out the grout, which should already be hardening. If the sponge gets it clear enough, great, but if you have a royal mess like we did with this charcoal color, you may want to take the rag shortcut. Key here though is if you switch to a rag, make sure it's a dry one. It should look pretty darn good at this point, but leave it overnight or 16 hours or something like that, and you'll see that there is still a haze on the tile left from everything drying out. You can now wipe off the rest of that grit again, and especially at this point with a dry rag. Your tile job looks great, but It's not finished until it's sealed. If you use sanded grout, you'll need to make sure it's sealed to protect against water and other damage like food or dirt or mold or bacteria, all of those lovely things. Most sealers are a simple spray-on, wipe-off process. Just be sure to let the grout cure before sealing. There you have it. Your tile work is finished. Great work. Hopefully these tutorials were helpful to you. Don't forget to check out the website for more specific information, links to products, extra tips and tricks. And I would sure love it if you subscribed and followed along. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at The Created Home. And if you do tackle your own DIY tiling job, please share a picture. I'd love to hear how it goes.